What if stupidity wasn't just the absence of intelligence, but something far more dangerous? Something that can twist even the brightest minds into agents of destruction. Imagine this. The biggest threat to civilization might not be evil people doing evil things, but ordinary people who have simply stopped thinking. Picture it. A decorated scientist spreading misinformation, a kind teacher endorsing extremist views, or a loving parent making choices that put their children at risk. These aren't villains. They're thoughtful, educated people who've fallen under what theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer called the power of stupidity. And here's what makes it so chilling. It's not just happening out there. It's happening to people just like you and me right now. This isn't just abstract philosophy. In 1961, Stanley Milgram at Yale University conducted his now infamous obedience experiments. Ordinary volunteers were told to deliver what they thought were electric shocks to another person. Despite hearing screams of pain, 60% continued to administer what they believed were deadly shocks. They weren't sadists. They were regular people who had temporarily given up their moral independence in the face of authority. This surrender of moral thought is exactly what Bonhoeffer saw unfold in Nazi Germany. From his prison cell, awaiting execution for his part in a plot to assassinate Hitler, Bonhoeffer wrote one of the most unsettling lines in modern philosophy. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. He noticed that while evil often self-destructs, because it's aware of its own corruption, stupidity is far more dangerous. It believes it's doing good, it's sincere, it feels righteous, and that makes it nearly impossible to correct. Bonhoeffer wasn't writing about dumb people. He was writing about a deeper social phenomenon, what he called functional stupidity. It's not about IQ or education. It's about the loss of independent thinking under collective pressure. When people stop thinking critically and start letting slogans, catchphrases, and social cues think for them, that's when stupidity becomes a force. He described it perfectly. In conversation with such a person, one virtually feels that one is not dealing with him as a person at all, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like that have taken possession of him. It's like people stop being individuals and start acting as extensions of a collective mind, one that's immune to logic. Modern psychology now backs this up. Researchers like Leon Festinger, the father of cognitive dissonance theory, showed how we twist our reasoning to protect our beliefs. When facts contradict what we think we know, our brains fight back. We rationalize. We reject evidence. And when people are stressed, overwhelmed, or afraid, that resistance only grows stronger. Bonhoeffer saw this exact dynamic, a society under pressure, where thinking independently became not only hard but dangerous. He realized that stupidity isn't a personal defect, it's a social disease. It spreads in groups, especially when those groups reward conformity over curiosity. Decades later, experiments by Solomon Asch confirmed this. 70% of participants went along with obviously wrong answers just to agree with the group. That's the terrifying part. Most of us would rather belong than be right. Today, we see this magnified by technology. Social media algorithms create echo chambers that feed us only what confirms what we already believe. A 2018 MIT study found that false information spreads 6 times faster than the truth online, because lies are emotionally satisfying. They're simple. They make us feel certain, and certainty feels good. But Bonhoeffer warned, certainty is often the mask of stupidity. So maybe the real danger isn't ignorance, it's the comfort of not questioning. That's where it begins, when we stop thinking for ourselves. The systems that manufacture stupidity. Bonhoeffer's insight was disturbingly prophetic. Stupidity isn't born, it's engineered. It thrives under specific social, political, and economic conditions that make independent thought costly and obedience convenient. Think about the world we live in. Our attention is constantly under siege. Every ping, post and notification and is a psychological tug-of-war designed to keep us reacting, not reflecting. And that's not accidental, it's profitable. Bonhoeffer recognized this dynamic long before social media existed. He noticed how systems of power didn't need to suppress truth outright. Instead, they could create environments where processing truth became too exhausting. In his time, that meant Nazi propaganda saturating the airwaves. Today, it's the endless scroll of algorithmically curated content. Let's break this down. When Bonhoeffer wrote about stupidity, he described it as a kind of moral paralysis, a condition where people surrender their reasoning to collective momentum. Those in power, he wrote, don't have to make people stupid. They just have to make thinking dangerous or inconvenient. Sound familiar? Modern economics has a term for this: rational ignorance. It means that in a world of limited time and unlimited information, it's actually rational to stay uninformed about complex issues. After all, who has the bandwidth to dig deep into policy, science, or ethics when you're juggling rent, bills, and work? The result? Individual rationality creates collective irrationality. Bonhoeffer saw this same cycle in 1930s Germany. Educated citizens, overwhelmed by crisis and propaganda, defaulted to groupthink because it felt safer. The same forces exist today, only now they're turbocharged by technology. Social platforms like Facebook, TikTok, and X, formerly Twitter, don't reward nuance. They reward engagement, and engagement is driven by emotion, not analysis. Outrage spreads faster than understanding. Lies go viral because they're simple and satisfying, while truth is slow and complicated. According to a 2018 MIT Media Lab study, false information travels 6 times faster than factual news on Twitter. Why? Because falsehoods are crafted to evoke strong emotions, fear, anger, belonging, the perfect recipe for virality. In Bonhoeffer's language, this is functional stupidity at scale. People stop engaging with information as individuals and start reacting as members of a digital mob. The algorithms don't just reflect our preferences, they shape them, reinforcing our biases until we can't tell what's true anymore. But Bonhoeffer's theory goes even deeper than media manipulation. He warned that stupidity thrives where people feel powerless, when systems strip individuals of agency, when speaking up feels useless. Thinking itself starts to feel futile. Why wrestle with hard truths when nothing seems to change? This is why stupidity isn't about lack of intelligence. It's about loss of courage. It's easier to repeat slogans than to question them. It's easier to share a meme than to analyze a problem. And every time we do that, we participate, however unintentionally, in the system Bonhoeffer warned about. Yet, there's hope in recognizing the pattern. Stupidity doesn't spread in a vacuum. It requires certain conditions: stress, fear, conformity, and disconnection. Remove those, and independent thought can breathe again. We can already see small movements pushing back. Critical media literacy programs are growing. Independent journalism is fighting to make truth accessible. Even some tech companies are experimenting with transparency tools to show users why they see what they see. Bonhoeffer didn't live to see our digital age, but his words echo louder than ever. The danger of stupidity is not in the stupid person, but in the system that makes stupidity easy and thinking hard. The question is, are we brave enough to resist that system? Why we're wired for functional stupidity. Bonhoeffer could only guess at the psychological mechanics behind his theory, but modern science has confirmed what he sensed intuitively. Our brains are designed to make stupidity easy. Not because we're foolish, but because our wiring prioritizes comfort and survival over accuracy and truth. Let's rewind millions of years. Our ancestors didn't need to analyze policy papers or detect misinformation. They needed to make split-second decisions: fight, flee, or freeze. Evolution favored brains that could react quickly, not necessarily think deeply. Certainty meant survival. Doubt could get you killed. Fast forward to now. Those same instincts operate in a completely different environment, one flooded with constant information and manipulation. Our brains still crave certainty and belonging, even when those instincts lead us astray. That's why confirmation bias feels so good. When we find information that agrees with what we already believe, our brains reward us with a dopamine hit. It's the same neurochemical satisfaction as eating sugar or receiving a like on a post. We literally get addicted to being right. Psychologist Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance explains the flip side. When we encounter information that contradicts our beliefs, it creates mental discomfort. Our brains hate that tension, so they push us to dismiss, distort, or ignore anything that challenges us. The more stress we're under, economic, emotional, or social, the stronger that impulse becomes. Bonhoeffer noticed this pattern decades before neuroscience gave it a name. In his letters, he observed that stupidity flourishes when people are anxious or feel powerless. They cling to oversimplified explanations because complexity feels unbearable. It becomes clear, he wrote, that stupidity is not a psychological problem, but a sociological one. He saw ordinary Germans, teachers, doctors, priests, abandon their own critical judgment, surrendering to the collective certainty of the Nazi ideology, not because they were evil or ignorant, but because they sought security in belonging. Modern psychology has proven how powerful that need is. Solomon Asch's conformity experiments showed that 70% of people would knowingly give wrong answers just to align with a group. Later research found that conformity doesn't just change our behavior, it can actually change our perception. Brain scans reveal that when people conform, their neural activity shifts as if they genuinely see the world differently. Now, combine that with today's technology. Social media doesn't just reflect social pressure, it amplifies it. Each click, comment, and share is tracked, analyzed, and fed back into algorithms that know exactly how to keep us scrolling. The result is a feedback loop of certainty. Our feeds show us what we already believe, and each confirmation makes us feel more confident and more closed-minded. A 2021 study from Yale found that posts expressing moral outrage get significantly more engagement on platforms like Twitter. The system literally rewards emotional extremity over nuance. Outrage becomes currency. Reflection becomes invisible. That's the modern evolution of Bonhoeffer's warning. We're no longer just surrendering to propaganda. We're surrendering to machine-optimized manipulation. Artificial intelligence doesn't just know what we think, it knows how to make us stop thinking. But here's the paradox. Understanding that we're wired for functional stupidity is also the first step to resisting it. The same brains that seek comfort can also seek truth if we train them. Bonhoeffer called this resistance costly grace, the courage to think independently even when it's painful or unpopular. Modern psychology might call it intellectual humility, recognizing that our minds are fallible and that being wrong is part of learning. It's uncomfortable, yes, but discomfort is the price of clarity. And in a world built to exploit our instincts, discomfort might just be the last sign that we're still thinking for ourselves. How to resist functional stupidity and reclaim independent thought. Bonhoeffer's life ended in a prison cell, but his warning was meant for the living, for us. He wrote that the ultimate test of a moral society is the kind of human it produces, and right now, our systems are producing humans who are too distracted to think and too certain to question. Yet, Bonhoeffer also believed in redemption, that the same structures that encourage stupidity can be challenged and changed. So, how do we resist? How do we stay human in an age that profits from our mental surrender? Let's start small with the individual mind. Modern psychologists call it intellectual humility, the awareness that your knowledge is always incomplete, that your beliefs might be wrong. It's not weakness. It's the foundation of wisdom. People who practice it are more curious, more adaptable, and less likely to fall for misinformation. It's not about doubting everything, it's about holding your beliefs with open hands instead of clenched fists. You can train this humility like a muscle. Here are a few practices, modern versions of Bonhoeffer's costly grace. 1. Practice intellectual friction. Once a week, intentionally read or watch something that challenges your worldview. Don't do it to change sides. Do it to test your thinking. Philosopher Karl Popper called this falsification, the act of trying to prove yourself wrong to strengthen what remains true. 2. Embrace productive ignorance. When you feel absolutely certain about something, ask yourself, what evidence would make me change my mind? If you can't think of any, that's not confidence, that's dogma. Curiosity begins where certainty ends. 3. Slow down your sharing. Before reposting a story, video, or statistic, take 60 seconds to verify it. Just 1 minute. That tiny pause interrupts the emotional reflex that algorithms exploit. Research from the University of Cambridge shows that even a brief accuracy reminder significantly reduces misinformation sharing online. 4. Relearn the art of saying, "I don't know." In a world that rewards hot takes and instant opinions, admitting uncertainty is a radical act of honesty. It signals that you're still thinking, still human. But Bonhoeffer knew that individual resistance isn't enough. Stupidity is systemic. It grows from environments that discourage thought. That means we need collective reforms too. We can push for algorithmic transparency, demanding that social media platforms disclose how their feeds shape our beliefs. We can support public education initiatives that teach media literacy and critical thinking from an early age. And we can advocate for economic policies that reduce chronic stress, because exhausted people can't think deeply. When people aren't constantly fighting for survival, they have the bandwidth for reflection. Bonhoeffer's insight wasn't just moral, it was structural. He saw that when thinking becomes dangerous, societies crumble. When it becomes possible again, they heal. And maybe that's the ultimate test of our time. Not whether we're intelligent, but whether we're courageous enough to keep thinking. Thinking hurts. It's uncomfortable to hold contradictions, to admit ignorance, to challenge your tribe. But as Bonhoeffer wrote, the price of freedom is not ease, it is vigilance. The terrifying truth is that we are all vulnerable to functional stupidity. The comforting lie is that we are immune to it. The moment we stop questioning ourselves, we've already begun to surrender. So this week, try something simple. Take one belief you hold dearly, political, moral, personal, and spend 30 minutes studying the strongest arguments against it. Not to undermine yourself, but to sharpen yourself. Because in that struggle, you reclaim your independence. Every time you choose curiosity over certainty, truth over convenience, reflection over reaction, you are resisting the systems that profit from your complacency. And in doing so, you honor Bonhoeffer's final question: who stands fast? In a world where it's easier to conform, will you have the courage to think? Because in the end, the battle for humanity won't be fought with weapons or words, but with our willingness to keep thinking when thinking becomes hard.